call the prospects. So for me, it's always contact, leads, and prospects. And of course, our job is to focus on the prospects and work them, but keep getting the contacts into leads and the leads into prospects. So you're always moving stuff up the line, like your little arrows show.
Excellent. Now, along that way, toward engagement with people and turning them into prospects, forums always come into it online when you're doing online marketing. But as you can see there, these days having a forum is not enough. You've got to offer value. And there's really been a change and a shift. I think people were more willing to fill out forms years ago, but there has to be a good value exchange now to get people to really do that. And to that end, there's been an evolution of lead capture forms. So let's walk through these, and we'll have Rob kind of explain how it's unfolded for him over the years, beginning with the traditional fully branded lead capture form.
Well, so basically this is something where I'm branding myself. So clearly, Mark, anybody that goes to this site knows that I'm a realtor. And I'm asking them to fill out information, and then I'm saying, hey, if you tell me everything about yourself, I'll actually give you information on your house. And it worked fine back when that was the only option, because that was the only option. But a couple of other, it's kind of morphed along the way, and I think that's where the slides are going from here. And so we can go through that. So this one, for instance, you'll notice there's nothing about me on this. And actually, if you were to look at this on a website, you could scroll up and down. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'd actually find some information to make it legal, that I'm a licensed realtor in the state of Oregon, that what am I trying to say? My license number, and the Keller Williams Realty, my name, all the stuff to make it legal. But what I'm actually pushing is just the data, the information. I'm sorry, I just lost the screen on this. There we go. Okay. I sound like an idiot. My screen disappeared. Yeah.
Helps.
So anyway, yeah, it does, because then I need to know what I'm talking about. But so basically, the idea behind this one is that people don't necessarily need to know me. I'm just trying to get them to fill out the form so that I can then send them the data and then sell them on me. And this goes back to the old sales days. For those of us that are old parts, have been in this business a long time. Before the internet, and we had MLS books and things like that, we had to sell ourselves because we had all of the data. So people had to come to us. But now they can go to Zillow and all these other places and get information and don't need to come with us, to us. So the idea behind this is a stealth site. You market this site. People don't think they're dealing with a realtor. They fill out the form, and then we sell them on us. And it worked great for a long time. But the next slides, you can see how it kind of morphed again, because the biggest issue there was still the same problem. Yes, they didn't know I was a realtor, but they still had to fill out the form. This was a great one. This one was it's actually not my slide, but it's this is using Top Producers Market Snapshot, which is a great product. It's about $90 a month.
This is from Agent Galen Haas here in Eugene. We'll show some of Galen Haas here in Eugene used this one. It wasn't Rob's, that's right, but it did represent one sort of half step down the evolution.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically it was a simpler form. They got a beautiful product at the end and everything else, and it worked great, but the problem still was there. I mean, the problem is you had to tell me who you were and all your information before I'd give you what you want. And people are like, no, I just want. That goes to the next slide. I think your little rubber band and mouse is running slowly there. So this is the new version, and this is really cool. So basically what happens here, and I think Mark's going to show you how this works, is people will go to this site, and it's a good-looking site. You can change the pictures to a desert house or whatever it is you got.
Yeah, I'll have some examples in a little bit of. Sorry, go ahead, Rob. I'll have some examples later on of agents who have actually some different ideas of how these can be changed, but go ahead.
Okay, so where we're kicking butt with this thing is that people will type in the address of their house, and they instantly get to see how much the house is worth. I'm not asking them for any information about themselves or phone number or email or anything at this point. And as you'll see, as Mark goes through a few of these slides, he's filling in information here, and it'll actually pull up the comps right away. And I forget how many seconds, but a few seconds it shows them the information, and then they've got to fill in this form. So you can see on this page, for instance, all of the information popped up. You guys didn't actually get to see that. Behind this white square, you can actually see a CMA. But it showed it long enough, and then it popped up and it said, hey, just want to make sure we've got this thing correct. And in this case, it says, is your house really 1,177 square feet? And the lot size, blah, blah, blah. And then tell us who you are, which I think that's now changed where we make the phone number mandatory, or is that an opt-in, Mark?
That's right. Yeah, this slide needs to be updated. The phone number is now required.
Okay. Now, it is something we dropped in. We found out by putting the phone numbers in, the number of leads dropped off. but the quality of the leads picked up significantly. So basically what we're saying is, here's a tease, here's all the information. Oh, by the way, make sure this information is correct and tell us who you are. So then they're telling us who they are, and we've got their information. So basically what we did is we gave them the information before we asked who they were, rather than asking who they were and then asking for the and then giving them the information. And you can see that people are much more likely to fill this form out than they would the other ones.
Right, and as Rob pointed out, in a live example, the information that's underneath here, the actual form with the results, pops up for a few seconds, so they see that first. The value is plainly shown before they have to register. And there's what it looks like after they fill in the form. Rob, can you address? Oh, go ahead. I was going to ask how the comparables work here and what the user can do with that form.
Sure, Mark. When I first started using it, quite honestly, I wasn't happy with it. And I'll tell you why. And that's because I'd get calls or emails from people, or they'd unsubscribe, and they're saying, well, you know, this isn't an accurate description of my house. Well, what I realized is that I'm not telling them, hey, this isn't meant to be a CMA of your house. This is supposed to show you everything that's going on in your neighborhood. So my line then became that, and that's actually one of my earlier drip mails is, you know, this just shows you everything that's going on around your house. If you're interested in the value of your house, have me come on out and take a look at it. And that works really, really well. It's kind of like when they first came out with other versions of automated CMAs over the years, I was doing a super good job. And let's say that there was a neighborhood of, I don't know, 1,000 houses, and this particular house was 2,000 square feet. Well, I'd do a good CMA just like I would as a realtor. And I'd say, okay, send them everything that's between 1,500 and 2,500 square feet, built after 1990, you know, whatever it is. The seller would drive home, and they'd see a sign up down the street, and it didn't show up on the report. So they'd unsubscribe, saying, well, you're not sending, you know, you didn't even pick up the house down the street, stupid. And that's when I realized, well, no, the whole idea here is not to give them the value of the house. It's to get me in the door. So when you're sending a regular CMA, you want to make it more vague. And when you're doing something like this, you want to let them know right out of the gate, I want you to know what's selling in your neighborhood so you know what's going on. These houses may or may not compare to yours. If you want to know what your house is worth in comparison to these, give me a call, send me an email. Let's set up a time to go out and take a look at it. It's very powerful.
And I've heard from agents, as I've talked to them around the country, that conversation starter really is the theme of this, that getting that discussion going, and then in the phone follow-up afterwards, what one agent in New Jersey described it in a way that was very memorable to me. He said, well, when I engage somebody on the phone afterwards, as soon as you can get to them, using the computer-generated estimate, you're sort of sitting that number across the table as if it were a person. You're sitting on the same side of the table as your lead, and you're both talking about that computer-generated number. And he said it's very easy to turn the conversation around to what the process would be to generate a specific value to get the house sold for the greatest amount in the shortest time, something like that. It makes a good foil to discuss that number, but then move it into a discussion of a real listing price. Does that sound like a good strategy, or what you have experienced, Rob?
Yeah, basically, yeah. It works. Again, the idea is just to get me in the door, right?
It's got to start with that. Now, what we've looked at so far is how the SmartZip process works. And again, for those of you on the call, I invite you to write questions into your question screen on GoToWebinar, and we'll see those. But how you market this is equally important. I mean, you've got to get people to find it and use it. And so Rob's going to take us through some of the postcards and marketing that he's used, and the marketing has changed along with the development of the tool.
Well, so one of the things I did, and this was one of my most successful postcards I've ever done. I did it 2-3 years ago. And what I did is I went to the title company, and remember I live in Portland, Oregon, and we're a little state of like 3 million people in the entire state, about 1.4 million or something in the Portland area. And we're next to California with 37 million people. Well, there are a lot of people that own property in Portland that live in California. So in this particular case, the first time I did this one, I went to my title company. I said, hey, can you pull all the records for me of all the people that own homes in Portland area that are single-family homes or condos, in other words, not commercial property, stuff like that live in the Los Angeles area? And what they did is they came up with a list, and I can tell you the number. It was 1,674 people. So I sent them this postcard. And what I was basically trying to do is one thing, and you can see right on there. I was trying to get their email address because I told them to email us for a free current photo of their property. Guys, I got 612 responses, and I actually listed 7 properties out of that first postcard campaign. And I've done variations of it since, and it's really paid off for me. And the key thing is that when I had 612 photos. I had to hire a kid to go out and take all those photos, keep them organized, send them to people, and so on. And the key part about it is that then I had their email address, so of course I started sending them automated CMAs once a month, my email newsletter through RealPro Systems once a month. So I'm touching them for basically nothing 24 times a year. And that's been extremely successful for me. It was very cumbersome, but it's extremely successful. So then we kind of moved on to this one, and I thought, okay, I could send them a postcard, and actually I'm going to kind of make a point here which Mark may or may not agree with, and it depends on your marketing. But you know the screen that you showed earlier where it's got the picture of the house and you type in the address, I sent that one out one time. You don't need to go there if you don't want. But I sent that one out one time, and I found I didn't get a huge response. And I thought, okay, that's kind of weird. I'm sending them this stealth postcard where they can find out the value of their Portland house just by typing in the address. I know the concept works because I do it in Portland all the time, and it works fine. Maybe because they're investors, and I am an investor. I own quite a few rental properties myself. Maybe because they're investors, they just want to see what it's worth and see what the report's like. So I actually did a report, and as you can see, I put a report on the postcard and said, hey, are you getting this every month? And it says, know the value of your home, delivered monthly, straight to your email inbox. Tons of responses again. So again, the same thing. I went to the title company and said, hey, get me the mailing addresses of all of the people that own rental properties that live in the Bay Area, that own properties in Portland or Los Angeles or whatever. So I've had really great luck with that sort of stuff. I've listed a lot of places out of it, but the most important thing is they just keep getting my SmartZips every single month and my RealPro newsletters as well.
That's a great idea. I hadn't actually heard that you had better response on this than the postcard made out of the actual website, you know, looking just like the website. We do have some agents I know. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, I think it's something to do about, hey, they're actually going to see what they're going to get, and the other one, it's a little bit of a surprise. I mean, it's a lot better than filling out the form, of course, and not knowing anything, because they can see as they start typing in, they get the information. But I think in the form of a postcard, this seems to work better because they're seeing what they're getting.
Terrific. It's a great idea. Now we'll roll here. Rob's up in Portland, about 100 miles north of where I am in Eugene, Oregon, and this is from Galen Haas. We showed one slide earlier from his set, and he uses the stealth URL for sellers, forhomesellers.com, and he uses this in a lot of different places. So this is the front and back of a postcard that he uses, and that address is going to go to a SmartZip form where people can put in the address and go on from there. Here's another look at the same thing, again pointing toward the URL, as you can see here, forhomesellers.com, his stealth URL. Now this is on his website as well, but of course only a certain number of people are either know about the agent or are going to find that tool and use it, so you've got to get it in front of them, hence the emphasis on the marketing of it. Now, Galen uses this one, and Rob, you know Galen very well. You may have other comments about this, but I know he's been using this weekly or more often than weekly in the local newspaper here in Eugene, I mean, since the earth cooled, right, and it keeps working.
Yeah, he's got this one, and I've seen him have great success with text ads too. So for instance, I don't know the areas in Eugene, but let's say in Portland, the Southwest Portland, he put a little column ad in there saying basically the same thing, but not a what do you call this, a picture ad, whatever you want to call it, but an actual column ad saying, know the value of your Southwest Portland home, go to forhomesellers.com. And I think he also, when I've talked to him about this, and I've not done it myself here, but I think he has better luck using small little regional rags, so to speak, rather than the big Eugene newspaper.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard that from him. Maybe we'll get him on one of these calls a month or two down the road and get another angle on how it works. Now, some agents around the country will use multiple stealth URLs. So email homevalue.net is Rob's, and forhomesellers.com here belongs to, as you can see, Galen Haas. But we have some agents around the country who very successfully have used multiple URLs. So they might have, you know, around Portland there are cities like Beaverton and Gresham. Well, you could have GreshamHomesellers.com if it were available, or BeavertonHomevalues.net, or whatever you came up with that was available. And if you sent that out on a postcard, it's a little bit more localized to a particular community, but it still points to the same SmartZip tool where somebody begins to fill in their address and the process goes on. And we do have a webcast with Agent Orly Steinberg from New Jersey who illustrates how she's targeted 5 different cities specifically. But in the end, that's just a tool to get people feeling localized and comfortable with the agent enough to go and fill out the form. Rob, do you have any comments on that, on the multiple stealth URL angle?
No, I don't do it. I know Orly very well, and I know she's extremely successful with it.
If anybody's interested in receiving that webcast, we have that recording archived, and I can send that along, and it's kind of a good primer on stealth marketing in general. So what we've walked through today is the evolution of lead capture from fully branded to the SmartZip. And what happens here at RealPro is that this is part of a suite of tools in our Gold Plus package. And along with RPS mail, which is video mail that you can send, and when you email somebody and they click to play that video, it actually plays inside the agent's website. We now have mobile search with the new IDX PT. So that was the one aspect of the mobile experience for our websites that we didn't have until IDX came out with that last fall, and SmartZip as we walk through today. And you put that all together with the website, and it's a powerful package. And let's see if there's some questions at this point. Feel free to type those in while we've got Rob. And okay. Rob, one of the questions, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. You've got a question. Go ahead.
Well, one of the questions that frequently comes up is, where does this data come from? And do you want to handle that one?
Yeah, it's tax data. And it's kind of like, the way that I like to tell people this is kind of like the IDX data that we're using on the buyer side. So, for instance, we do a super job of marketing leads through RealPro systems and picking up buyer leads and stuff like that, and they're looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Southwest Portland, whatever. You know, and they start getting the drip emails and so on. Well, it's limited information that they're actually getting, right? So they're not getting the full suite of information that, say, you'd get as an agent going in through your MLS. So our pitch at that point is, hey, you know, when you're ready to become a prospect, I mean, obviously we don't say it that way, but in essence what we're saying is, hey, when you become a real person, ready, willing, and able to buy a house, we'd like to upgrade you. And you can see everything that the agent sees on the MLS without the exception of the, you know, the listing agent, the alarm codes, and stuff like that. And, of course, that's the client version of the MLS. And so it's kind of the same concept here. What I'm suggesting, and I actually forgot the question. I was going somewhere with this. I feel like an idiot.
Oh, Mark. Oh, that's great. No. There's a lot of good information that ties together. It was, where does the data come from?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so thank you. God, I'm getting old. So basically, the data is coming here is just text data. So it's not MLS data of comparable homes sold. And so it's the same thing, right? It's you're teasing them just like you are with the IDX feed on a buyer side. And now you're just sending them the tax data. But if they want the full-blown thing, you can set them up with an automated CMA through your, or not necessarily automated, but a manual CMA through your MLS. Or maybe you subscribe to Cloud CMA or something like that. Or even Top Producer Market Snapshot would be an upgrade. But again, the idea of this form isn't necessarily to give them tons of accurate data and do a bang-up job on the CMA and look like an incredible expert. It's to let them know what's going on in the neighborhood to get them into your system so that you can then market them and take them to the next level. And it's really important to get that point across.
We've got a couple of other questions that have come in, and I'm going to go to a website, a couple of websites for one of them. One question that was asked is, how do you adapt the artwork? So let me make a couple of adjustments here and show you a couple of forms that have been changed to pass the standard picture. And pardon me, I'm moving around my GoToWebinar question box so I can still see it. You all don't have that box, but I'll make this screen a little bit smaller just so you can get it all in. So this is from Bend, Oregon. And so it's localized, of course, for Bend, but the picture is Bend. Everybody in Bend knows Mount Jefferson. Another one here would be, this is from the Palm Springs area. And again, let me make this a little bit smaller to show it on the screen a little bit better. And it's the desertmarketreport.com. So this can be localized for your own particular area. And then one other example actually uses not a pictorial approach, more of a graphic approach. And this is from Helene Kurtz down in Baton Rouge. And she does a terrific job with graphics and probably did a lot of this herself. But most of the time, our client care department will be working with you to get the appropriate picture, so it really reflects your area.
Another question. Who's had that many high-rises?
I suspect that she's borrowing a general idea here. Or maybe there's been more growth in Baton Rouge than we're all aware of. Linda asked the question, before I direct my sellers to use SmartZip, I like to look first and see what value they're going to get for their home. How can I take a look at it first for a property? That's a great one for Rob. How can you know the value that the client saw or the lead saw?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you saying before you get the product you want to see how it works, or are you saying that you'd want to know the value before the client fills out the form?
Let me see. Let me look at the question once again.
Well, let's
She
answer
says
both those questions.
when working with current sellers, Linda modified, gave some more information here in the question. So that's a little bit different than normal take than the lead generation.
Yeah, it is a good question. So if you're working with a current seller, one thing you could do in there is you could just throw them into the system automatically. And by the way, something that either Mark or I mentioned is once they've actually filled out that form, they get an update every single month. So they'll get a drip email sent out in your stationery with a click here link to see your latest update, and they can click on it and see the most recent sales. The problem is it depends on how long, for current sellers, depends on how long it takes your county to update the information. In Washington County, the county that I do about 50% of my business in here in Oregon, it takes about 4 months for them to update the sales versus Multnomah County, where I do the other half of my business in, it's just a couple of weeks. So that doesn't work for me, so you need to know the answer to that first. And that might be something where you probably want to drop them into your MLS to send more accurate data anyway. Again, the idea of this is really more as a tease to get them to give you their information in the first place rather than keeping current sellers updated, but hey, it can't hurt to keep them updated either. It makes them more realistic. Yeah, one of the things, if I can elaborate on that too, actually, is the good part about sending this or something like this out to current sellers is you'll find, and let's just use a round number to say something. Let's say Fred down the street's got his house on the market for $500,000, and he drops it to $475,000 and he drops it to $450,000, and then he drops it down to $425,000, and my seller happens to see Fred down the street and says, "Hey, I see a sale pending." And by the way, I forgot to add, he got a sale pending at $425,000. I see a sale pending sign went up. Did you get your price? And he says, "Yeah." Well, my seller doesn't realize he dropped it from $500 to $425,000. He thinks it sold for $500. So I actually get people arguing with me saying, "Well, that can't be right. He was asking $500,000 for that." And I can, yeah, he dropped the price 3 times to $425,000, and then he sold it at $425,000. So this really helps you in that case to elaborate and say, "Hey, this is tax data. This is really what happened out there."
There's one question that came to mind. It has to do with if you're using this tool and the number is the estimated value is going out to the lead, how do you see it? And the answer to that is you'd fill out the form, your own form, and just put in the address. So at this point, it doesn't copy the agent on the particular price. However, you will always know the address right away that the person put in. So I popped up, actually, I borrowed this from you, Rob. This is one of your leads, and it's the data on what the lead named Sherry put in for the address. So you know that address, and you can simply pop this into your own SmartZip blank and get the estimated value just like she would.
You must have just done that because I listed that house 2 weeks ago from this form, and we actually got an offer accepted on it on Tuesday. So
I added it about 5 minutes before we started today.
Okay, yeah.
I wanted to make sure to have that data in there. Let's see, other questions while we've got Rob for a few more minutes, and I appreciate him being with us today. Let me look at the sheet if there's anything that I want to throw in that normally comes up.
If anybody's not asking, I guess I'd say this is one of those throw spaghetti at the wall type products. You're just trying to get people to give you the information. That's all that you're trying to do. So don't get hung up on, hey, it's not accurate information, or hey, it's not this, or whatever. The whole idea is that you're trying to get people to give you their email address where they wouldn't normally give it to you. And then you can tweak things and send them what you really want to send them.
Terrific. Oh, there is one thing I wanted to show before we conclude. I'm in my RPS Gold demo system, and I'm going to go to campaigns. Rob mentioned this, but I think it's a good idea just to make sure that this is clear. Normally, for most lead sources, you're going to have everybody's name, of course, put into the newsletter mailing list for long-term branding through the newsletter, but you would normally have one campaign at work. Well, there are 2 that go to work here, but they're different in nature. So the CMA request campaign, the way that everybody receives their site from RealPro, if you look over at the right, under the letters, there's 44 of those, and they span exactly a year. Now, of course, as with all these campaigns, the agents can modify the time schedule and the contents of the letters, but that's 44 letters in a year, and each of them are different. The second thing that tends to go out, and that does go out, is called SmartZip. and it's been temporarily removed. I'm always tearing down and rebuilding this, but there's another campaign called SmartZip. But rather than being a certain number of different letters, it's the same letter monthly for 36 months. And basically, it's just a couple of paragraphs, and right in the middle is a live link. So every month, of course, market dynamics change. Somebody clicks the link, and they can see the updated SmartZip derived value for 36 months. So even after the RealPro campaign, the CMA request campaign ends, the monthly SmartZip update will continue to go out.
Mark, one of the things that I did is I did a bunch of videos, which of course you can do in the Plus product, and I created a bunch of seller videos, and those campaigns go out as well. So I've got seller videos just basically on tips on, here's what the form looks like, and here's what you need to know about lead-based paint and stuff like that. And I've even actually taken it a step farther where I subscribe to David Knox's Pricing Your Home to Sell stuff, which is now all online. And that goes out as a link as well, where they can actually download, well, not download, I guess just streaming. And I think they're like 20 minutes long. I mean, these are really high-quality videos that he puts out. So I'm continuing to bombard them with information. And don't forget that, of course, at that point in time, they're also getting my newsletter once a month also. So I'm just staying in touch with them. I mean, sometimes it can be a couple of years before these people get back to you. But I'm just staying in touch with them and just touching them, and that's the whole idea.
Rob, let me ask a clarifying question. Are you saying that you have added an additional video-specific campaign, or that you've woven the videos into the letters in the CMA request campaign?
No, I did some campaigns. I actually did it for buyers originally, and then I thought, well, hold on a second. Half this stuff works for sellers too. If I'm telling a buyer they need to know about the lead-based paint form, or whatever, or what a sales contract looks like, I can just flip these over to sellers. So yeah, I did a whole series of campaigns. I even went out and I talked to my furnace contractor, and he's a friend of mine that owns a furnace company, and I said, hey, how many videos can we do on like furnaces? And he said, well, let's do one on high efficiency furnaces and air conditioning systems and smart thermostats and all sorts of stuff. And I went to my insurance agent and I said, hey, how many videos can we do on insurance? And he said, well, let's do one on replacement cost insurance and flood insurance and earthquake insurance and so on. And I went to my title company and said, how many videos can we do with you? And same thing. So I've got interview videos, and I've got regular videos just talking about the different forms. And these pop out on a regular drip email type basis. And what I can tell you, Mark, is I get much bigger response rate from people on the video emails than I do on just the regular emails.
Interesting. Well, data across many industries, not just real estate, does indicate that, if you've got video in an email, it increases the open rate considerably. And very importantly, it drastically increases the click-through to website as well while we're on that topic. So video and email is terrific.
Yeah, and the cool way that RealPro does it is they're not actually sending the video in the email. They're taking a picture of the video and sending it out so it doesn't get caught up in spam blockers. And the second thing that's cool, because what I used to do is put links to videos in my emails, and I did the videos on YouTube. Well, with RealPro, what you do is you do the video, you post it to YouTube, you push a button that syncs them all over to RealPro. So when you're actually watching the video, instead of taking it to YouTube, where, of course, the buyer or seller can see all of your competitors, it's taking them right to my RealPro site. So the video actually plays on my site. I know that's a whole other webinar.
Different webinar.
But I thought I'd throw it in there. Yeah, but it's, it works just as well for sellers as it does for buyers.
It really makes the point that using our Gold Plus product that you can put together, it really does put together a number of solutions that don't just stand as islands. They really work together. So thanks, Rob, for being with us today. We sure appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And for those of you who have additional questions afterwards, again, contact your client care rep or me, Mark Wiseman, here in training. We look forward to helping you as you implement SmartZip CMA. So until the next training, have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.